Good evening. Welcome to Hawthorn.
Are you the kind of person who just has to take a picture of their food when it arrives from a restaurant? If you are, you might rethink that after watching the menu. Hi there, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Watch by Ashley, where we take a look at some of the new releases available on video on demand and on the big streaming platforms and discuss whether or not they're worth the watch. Today we're going to be taking a closer look at the menu. So this film debuted at the Toronto International Film Festival in 2022, and it's had a lot of praise ever since its debut. And I have to tell you, this is a very beautiful film, not only in the way that they capture the dishes that the guests eat, but also in the way that Mark Mylod was able to capture the beauty of the island that the restaurant Hawthorn takes place on. He definitely captures the opulence and gaudiness of the super wealthy, and he has served as director for multiple episodes of Succession. Similar to Succession, you have beautiful wide shots with high contrast. It's very crisp. He makes you feel like you have a reservation for Hawthorn and you're an additional guest there. I really was kind of mesmerized because it's almost like taking a peek at the curtain for these elites. So I thought that was really great. And I can honestly say the film is definitely worth the hype. If you watch the trailer for the film, I find it to be a little misleading. It kind of seems like it's going to be a survival thriller, and I thought it was going to be very similar to 2020's The Hunt. Pleasantly, that's not the case. The film actually has a lot more going on for it than a survival aspect. I would say this film is more so a thriller and a dark comedy.
You will eat less than you desire and more than you deserve.
It definitely has a lot of motifs and themes to make you think, on top of it being visually stunning. Starring in the film as our head chef, we have Fiennes. He really embodies that intimidating nature of a head chef who needs to get things done for his high-ranking restaurant. Then we have Anya Taylor-Joy as our lead, as Margot, and Margot's date for the dinner occasion is Tyler, played by Hoult. The basic premise of this movie is that Margot and Tyler have been invited to an exclusive dinner at this very high-end restaurant where only the elite attend. And the reason why is not only is it remote, but it's also extremely expensive. And they're joined by a few other patrons. We have John Leguizamo, who is playing a kind of washed up star who brings his assistant with him for dinner. We have 3 investment bros who are there to get some clout to say that they've gone to this very exclusive restaurant. Then we have a super rich couple who have been at the restaurant multiple times, which is insane because it costs over $1,200 per head. And then we have a food critic and her editor who are there for the evening. They want to do a piece on the restaurant since they did the initial review of the head chef's meals many years ago. So this is a chance for them to revisit his work. And then we also have the head chef's mother as a special guest for this dinner. The dinner is multiple courses, so when we start the evening, everything starts off very nice and light, and you have these beautiful dishes that are coming out, but things quickly start to shift as some of the other meals start to come out. So for example, the chef gives a little bit of a story for every dish that he serves, and one of the stories he tells them is about bread and how bread is a staple for many cultures, but the one consistency is that bread is mainly eaten by the poor. And if you can afford to be at this restaurant, then you're definitely not poor. And so he decides to serve accompaniments for bread, but without the bread. And this is kind of like a head scratcher to the guests because they're like, how could you possibly do that? And in fact, we have people demanding bread. They say like, I'll pay whatever you want, or give me the bread. I know the owner, like, you know, just give us the bread. And the chef and his assistant, they just refuse because they're just like, that defeats the purpose and you're supposed to just enjoy the accompaniments.
Totally get all the conceptual stuff, but could we please get a little bread, you know, and some gluten-free for my friend as well?
No.
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 And then through Tyler, who is Margot's date, like he's a complete foodie and he is lapping it up. Like he's like, oh my gosh, this is so brilliant. This is such a great presentation and all these accompaniments taste great. But Margot's like, this is stupid. Like you have like no food on your plate and it's just so pretentious.
Wait, you like this?
Oh, yeah.
He's basically insulting you.
No, you don't get it. It's a concept.
she's over it. Like, she's not a foodie at all, and she finds the whole thing to be completely silly. She's just there to be Tyler's company since his girlfriend recently broke up with him. And her being a last minute fill-in for Tyler's date kind of causes issues with Elsa, the assistant to the head chef. She lets it be known that she's not really happy with this change in their guest list. And so Margot is automatically on the head chef's radar. So the head chef is very curious about Margot, and through his interactions with her, we as an audience also become very curious. And it's just very interesting to see how the night progresses. As the meals go on, the chef again starts telling them more stories, and he reveals to them that his intention is for this to not only be his last meal, but the last meal for his guests. And so because Margot is kind of like an outlier, he needs to decide what to do with her. Is she an elitist like the rest of the guests, or is she a worker like the chef and his kitchen crew? So it's very interesting to see that kind of dilemma and how they deal with it, but it is definitely very entertaining. There's a twist with some of the characters that I was in a lot of shock. I was very surprised. I was like, oh my gosh, like, this person is just impossible. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about, because it was just crazy. But anyways, I'm not going to go too deep into the plot because I don't want to spoil it for you. If you like cooking television shows, especially those shows with competitions where the contestants have to plate their food a certain way, or they have to use very specific ingredients and techniques, then you're definitely going to enjoy this movie because they do showcase a lot of the meals in a very beautiful way. I love the contrast in the colors and just the way they set it up. In fact, I believe one of the creative references that they used for this movie was a producer on Chef's Table, which is a Netflix show. So in terms of that presentation, it carries over into this movie, so it's really cool because I can spend hours and hours watching those kind of shows. I can get lost in the technique that they're using. And what makes it relatable for me is, even though I love watching those shows, when you actually go to an eating experience that features meals that are plated like that, I personally don't enjoy it. I know it's meant to look like a beautiful piece of art and it's been deconstructed and you have all these different flavors, but to me, I would just like things to be simple and enjoyable and a portion that is enjoyable instead of like little bits and pieces of things on your plate. Which actually makes me a bit more relatable to the main character of this film. I really did like the way that they told the story here. They really do keep you guessing, and they actually do things that are unconventional, so I really enjoyed the film. This film definitely highlights the gap between the elite and the wealthy and the common person, to the point that they don't enjoy their food. They go to restaurants for every other reason except for enjoying a meal. Some of these influencers and rich people, they go to restaurants to take pictures of the food.
I find it all very moving. It's all so beautiful. It's almost too beautiful to eat.
Only a few people can go in at a time, and to show on your social media that you were there, it just shows how exclusive it is and like you've made it to be there. And another reason why people go to restaurants, it's to not enjoy the food, but to critique the food to the point where even if there's a slightly broken emulsion, it becomes an issue, or it's something to scoff and say, oh, well, I got the chef there, right? You're not really there to enjoy the taste and the colors and the flavor and the texture of the meals. And so the head chef spent so many years dedicating his life and his heart to creating these beautiful meals, but they're just not enjoyed for those aforementioned reasons. And it breaks his heart. Like, it tears away at him because he just feels like, I go through all this effort of making all these masterpieces, but it's lost on the patrons of the restaurant. Sure, they might spend $1,200 each person to be at the restaurant, but they're not enjoying the food. And because they've made it so in demand that the middle class or poorer people who would actually enjoy the meals can't afford to go there. So it's almost like a thankless job for him. Overall, if I was to give the film a rating, I would give this film a B+. The direction is great, like I said. I love that style. I love the set design. I just love the way that they make you feel like you're in a very chic restaurant, and the way they presented the food, like, it's fantastic. Things are framed beautifully. I did like that. Even when they use special effects to show that Margot is feeling disoriented when she realizes the gravity of her situation, I like that too. But I did like that they highlighted just that sick feeling she had, so that was great. What takes away from the film for me, or what I wish there was more of, I wish they spent some more time delving a little bit more into the past of the patrons. Like, I just wanted to see a bit more of what really put them on the head chef's hit list. Also, I did feel like the ending was a little bit flat. Like, there is a bit of a moral to the story, but I think that it could have been I should have had a little bit more depth to it. For me personally, I just felt like it was a little bit lacking. But overall, I do highly recommend this movie. If you like films that are a commentary on society and have a lot of satire to them, this film is definitely for you. But those are my thoughts in regards to the menu. Please let me know if you enjoy the film. Are you a foodie? Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed the content here, please consider giving me a like and subscribe. This will help me in growing the channel, and I really do appreciate it.